right. Hello. I don't think anyone's here yet, though. This is a very busy screen. Oh, Tank joined. Hi. All right, you're number one. Hi. How's it going? Thanks. Just figuring out all the technicals on this, but it looks pretty straightforward. All right. Well, thanks for being number one. Do you have a first question? People are teching in. I'm Lex, and I have been doing a book talk for like 2 years, and then I started talking about my Hermetic Memory Wall, and that kind of blew up. So Tank number one. That's a good name too. What movie is that from? Tank. The guy named Tank. I can't think about it. But anyway, I like that. So if anybody has questions about what's on this Hermetic Memory Wall or other things about books, the other things they talk about are AI and sci-fi and science, history of science, current what's going on in science right now, and history. So cool. Like the wall? Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of work. It's been a couple different iterations. Let me spin it and just show how it looks there. There's my flying whale, by the way. That's my own spirit that I got from my mom, who might be watching at the moment. So yeah, so there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the last sheet of paper. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 through there. And then the big one is the Hermetic Memory Wall. And I don't know if you already said, but how did you start? Okay, good question. I didn't say, actually. I have barely talked about this. Like I did say in one video, the strangest part to me is nobody has seen this hardly. Like 6 people in the world have seen this wall in real life, and almost none of them care at all. So it was really surprising and fun to have so many people all of a sudden be interested in it. And for me, I think what started it, I mean, for sure, it was these 2 books that were the first impetus for it, the Giordano Bruno book. Oh, I wish I could flip. Can I do that flipping effect here really quick? I think I can. It just doesn't have the same effects as my... Yeah, sorry, I can't flip it to show the books better. But anyway, this is a Giordano Bruno book by Francis Yates, Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic Tradition, which turned me onto the Hermetica in general. And it just helped me to organize what I was thinking about this stuff, because when I organize my data around my science work, when I'm talking about cannabis or things like that, I use timelines, and that's a really easy way to organize my thoughts. But for this stuff, it's, how do you organize mysticism? Stuff that's ineffable in its own right. And then I start reading about Pythagoras and about how he considered the numbers themselves holy, and it just made sense as something to hang it on. You can read the names. Oh, it gets flipped. Okay, great. Thanks, Tank. That's awesome. And so it just seemed like a really good system for hanging these ideas on. And I grew up in the church. I grew up in a pretty conservative Anabaptist church on the East Coast of the U.S. But even in this place, it wasn't a particularly mystical church. There were hints of that, and there was talking about these high-level ideas of the 1 and the 2 and the 3, and then you get out to other churches and hear more of that kind of stuff. And then I probably would have called myself an atheist through college, but then started taking mushrooms, and it just helped me to expand what could be possible in the world. And so that led to wanting to organize the information. Just like any topic that you start getting into, okay, how do you organize it? Like, once you read 5 or 10 books on a subject, you got a lot in your brain, but it's more than you can easily summarize, and it's nice to write it down. For me, I really... Namaste, hello Jen, and hey to Tasty Kelly, Bloom, it's a little hard to see for me. It's really helpful to to organize in a certain way that I can see it visually. I did a video a while back about this memory book that's really amazing from this guy a century ago, and he said how Napoleon knew the name of every person in his army up to the lieutenant level. So thousands of people's names he knew. And apparently his trick was he would look at the person, he would write down their name, and then he would just throw away the piece of paper. He didn't need it. It was the action of writing it down. And I think pretty early on, I learned that by writing this stuff down and giving it a pretty constant look, it helped me to keep it in my head. It's telling me I can swipe right to view more comments. So I'm also testing out the, this is a great way to see the comments. Thank you, everybody. I'm still testing out the technology of this, but this is so much better. And I see Kate Bush. Hey, good to see you. And so, yeah, I think the idea of memory being attention and association are the two little friends of memory, according to that memory book I was talking about. And you start looking at this stuff, and that's the attentional side and paying attention to it. But you also want to hang all the ideas around it that make sense, and it starts to solidify it in your mind. And so for me, the ability to just write it down one time, and then every couple days, every couple weeks, I just happen to glance at it again and read it over again. And it's exactly the same thing that happened to me with. Sorry, it's hard to do the comments and do this. Let me start over. Because I was supposed to say, you wrote about your Hermetic Memory Wall in your journal. That's really cool. So I know everything on this wall by heart. No, not at all, actually. I'm surprised by how little I keep in my head. It's a little bit like I always knew I'd always have Wikipedia at my fingertips. And so just like Einstein said, Einstein didn't memorize his own phone number because he said if he needed it, he could look it up in the book. And that's what we're doing now. We're exporting our brains on the parts that aren't as important onto the internet. And so many things in history I've looked up 2 or 3 times on Wikipedia, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. By the 4th or 6th time, I don't need to look it up anymore. And so with these, a lot of them I don't need to look it up anymore. I kind of have the sensation of it in my head. Even if I couldn't quote it to you right now, I have the feeling of it. And I think that's what happened to me with the I Ching as well. Like after 10 years of working with the I Ching, I didn't need to look it up all the time. You kind of got the feeling of it. And so I think a lot of this stuff is just reworking it over and over again, just like a novelist, just like Hermann Hesse. They say Hermann Hesse did, pretty much wrote the same book over and over again. I mean, it's not quite that cut and dry, but still, he had a lot of the same ideas he'd keep coming up with. But it was the most important work done in the last century of him wrestling with the same ideas and turning them over. And I think that's really important for us because I think for most people, it was certainly always true for me that the stuff I wrote in my diary when I was 5 or 8 or 10, it's the exact same stuff I was writing at 35. It's not much new going on here, which is really funny. You're going to be wrestling with these same problems the rest of your life. And, for me, this is like 15 years of writing. Like, it looks like a lot, but it's 15 years worth. I have some other pages hidden around and things like that, but it's also very slow, and you just keep working at it. And you just do it until you die. And then I believe you do it again anyway. You just learn a little bit in this life, and you don't have to learn that much. Your soul has to just weigh more than a feather, and, you made it worth it. So Tank, I always feel dumb when there's something I don't remember. Yeah, I hear you. Like, it's funny because there's this pressure today to have it all in your head. And we really don't need to. For one, the facts are on the internet. You can look them up or whisper them to Google using the text anytime. But we don't have to memorize that stuff. What's going to separate us from the AI is our creativity and the connections that we make. And I think a visual system like this is really good for connections. And so, Kinley, you asked about books on the Hermetic memory. So there's Memory Palace books out there now, and I think there's a lot of good ones. I don't really know that. For me, the book that really changed me was this Bruno book. by Frances Yates. But she also wrote a book. Her name is actually Dame Frances Yates. That's the English version of Knight because she was that good. She has a book on memory palaces that is specifically about memory, and I haven't read it yet, to my chagrin, but it's supposed to be amazing. So that's where I would start with Memory Palace, because she really goes into the history of why they're doing it. So, do I recommend going to school to study quantum physics? Yes, if you're into quantum physics. For me, where's Nick Herbert's book? I'm in the middle of moving my books around, so I'm far more disorganized than I normally am, and it drives me a little bit crazy. Will I be able to find this? Bibliomancy, come to me. No, I guess not. Alright, well, for quantum physics, the book I would recommend is by Nick Herbert, and he's actually an old buddy of mine. He's like in his 90s. He's someone I interviewed on my podcast, and he talks about how quantum physics, there's a spiritual side to quantum physics that gets ignored by people who are just doing the equations, and it's a really great look at it. If you want something a little bit more readable, How the Hippies Saved Physics is something really great on quantum physics. It's about, it's a really great explanation of all the craziness that happens at the quantum level and how that stuff could be happening at this higher level, because we don't really know where to draw the slit, if you will, with the observer experiments. You want the first book again? You want this book for a screenshot? Yeah, Giordano Bruno by Dame Frances Yates. Yeah, The Tao of Physics, that's a really good book. That's true. Information on Metatron, the star angel. I know a little bit about him. In my own little personal cosmology, Metatron is the angel straight above. But that's about all I know about him. Yeah, go hippie physicist. Watch, I don't often say that. Watch my Nick Herbert interview. It's like one of the last ones on my Lex files. It's just great, because all of those early quantum physicists, they got it. Niels Bohr had a yin and yang on his family crest before anyone in the West knew what a yin and yang symbol was. Almost all of those early thinkers who are household names now, they understood that there was a very deep philosophical implication of what they were doing. And that's been erased by this mathematical take on physics, where they can now compute very well where electrons and such are going to be, but they just ignore that philosophical side of it, unless you read something like all my books are so moved around. Beyond Physicalism, which I've mentioned recently. Here it is. Yeah, if you want something really great on the best current thinking of the science of what might be happening with the supernormal, this is a really amazing book, because the first chapter is the science of how, there's so much data to prove things that are considered paranormal or weird, and then the rest of it is a bunch of different essays by thinkers about the theories of what might be happening in the universe to make that possible. But at this point, I don't consider someone a scientist if they don't believe in some kind of supernormal, paranormal stuff going on. If you don't believe in ESP, it's all right, then you refuse to look at the data. You refuse to read books on the subject. Almost the same with reincarnation. Particle behavior affected by the observation. That's exactly what I mean. That's where you draw the slit. So just to summarize the experiment for the people who don't know it, is an electron a wave or a particle as it goes through, and it depends on whether it's getting observed and doing the observations. But it's not when it gets measured by the laser that's doing the measuring. It's not even if it's stored in a computer and you look at it. It's not until it's the craziest thing, but they've done a lot of studies on this. That particle does not break down into becoming a solid wave or a solid particle until another consciousness actually observes it. It does not become itself until another consciousness interacts with it. And so where do you draw that slit between? It's only us observing it that matters. It's not our tools observing it, it's us. It's our own consciousness. And that's the key. to what all of this means. The Buddhist, I had an old mentor, and he would always start with the Buddhist idea of independent co-origination. So the okay, the okay, my sister's sending me stuff. I'm getting my family's watching and sending me little things for my first one. So yeah, the quantum stuff. And what else did someone see? I like your scarf, thank you. Yeah, I do too. I got it for my wife. And it feels nice, free Palestine as well is what I think. Tell me more about your altars. I can tell you a little bit about my altars, maybe not a ton. Yeah. The I'll say one. So just because you can see her, this is my main altar, and it's to the ocean because that's the spirit that, according to my godmother in my tradition, walks with me the most. And so I feel like I have the ocean here in my guts, and in that, the idea is that you're here to learn what spirit you're walking with. And so the ocean is emotions and also maternal. And so I'm here to learn about emotions, which makes a lot of sense because I'm terrible with them because I grew up, I don't know, I didn't like them growing up, and I wish I didn't have to deal with them, and I'm here to learn how to be better about them, and so I married a therapist, and now I have 2 kids, and the other half of the ocean is being a mother, so I'm a mother, parent to my 2 kids, and also trying to learn about emotion. So it's nice to be here in Bordeaux and not too far from the sea and be close to Mother Ocean. And it's also fun that I just have a whole bunch of seashells here. And the baby especially just comes and dumps them out all on the floor and screws around with them and breaks them and puts them back. So my sign, I'm Aquarius actually. So my birthday's soon. My 40th birthday is like really soon. But I don't give a shit about birthdays. If you say happy birthday, I'll say thank you. Actually, I'll say thank you and same to you, because that's what my family always said. We had an uncle who was a bit of a Rain Man. Like he was a bit slow and off in some ways, but knew everything going on in our town. And whenever you would say to Uncle Jerry, happy birthday, Uncle Jerry, he'd be like, well, same to you. Anyway, I do live in Bordeaux. I've been here for 2 years. My French is terrible. It's really getting to the point that it's embarrassing. And it's like, oh, I don't have time because I'm working late and I have kids and all of that, but I have time to do this. My in-laws are probably a little bit like, it's time for all of those books. I'm in a bit of a stuck place with French. My kids great at it, of course, but it's not a pleasant feeling to be here and not be able to communicate after. I mean, it's a tough language, but anyway. Oh, my sister's there. February 9th. Yeah, that's my exact birthday. Je vais parler en français alors? Excellent, c'est bon. Hey, Eric, good to see you. J'espère, j'ai un rêve, stand-up des Français avec la phrase de la chat. The French have tons of phrases about cats for some reason. There's more than one way to kill a cat, things like that. So I just want to make a stand-up about just that. Anyway, so feel free to ask any questions about the wall. I have maybe 10 or 20 more minutes left until I have to probably go and get stuff done. My rising sign is a Scorpio. Got the which is a tough one. They say you can turn into magic. You got the Scorpio. I don't know astrology very well. My wife does, and I try to, I know some from being around. But the idea with Scorpio being that it's a scorpion, you have that poison, and it can poison you, or you can do the work to transform it into gold and make it medicine for the world and for yourself. It can make it difficult on you. So, good. Well, thank you. It's 34 people here, and everybody's really sweet. Thank you so much. This is really good. I was a little verklempt, but feeling better now. I just want to say thanks so much to everybody for caring about this. Eric, you said, what'd you miss? You didn't miss much. I think it's this will be up for the next 3 months apparently. I just really appreciate people being interested in this. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I just got a whole bunch of great questions. So thank you so much. What am I currently reading? I'm reading I'm usually reading 50 to 60 books at a time, but usually only like one or two novels. So the novel I'm reading is Middlemarch by George Eliot. Oh my god! In our little family book club, it's amazing. It's like Jane Austen level good. It's like definitely one of the top 20 novels like in world history that I know of. The other one being Cervantes. I'm reading through Don Quixote now. I found a really great translation, and I'm reading through it for the first time, and it is wonderful. It is just, you can see why it was so magnificent. So, Tank, how would you recommend one to start their own wall? It's a tough question because it really is like, where do you get started? But for me, I always recommend drugs. That would be my first, it's always my first go-to. But just starting with something, just the first stuff that you sit down and you try to make your first one and you just start putting the stuff up on the wall. This is a bunch of different iterations. I'm gonna have to redo this. I had some errors on this number 7, like alchem, 4 elements, 3 types of matter thing, and I have to redo it now. But it's part of the fun because every time you rewrite it, you get it better in your head. So I would just write your most important things. Maybe 3 or 4 great numbers. I think that's all humans can keep in their head is 3 or 4. And so just just put up 3 or 4 items of stuff that relates to you. Make a wall map of it on your thing, on your wall, and I think it's really going great. You're not getting to cool. Good. I'm getting behind here. A startup wall to help others get started. That's okay. That's a good idea. I'll think about that. I won't. I don't think I have ideas right now. Besides, you just have to do it. Just smoke some pot and get started. I just got here. What's this about? This is about Hermeticism. This and the studying as above, so below. So this is my Hermetic Memory Wall. And somebody asked for a tour. Sure, that's a great idea. So let's take this off here, and hopefully everybody can hear me. Invite to join live. Turn off invite. Wait, am I being invited to join a live? Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's do the tour here. I think this is reversed, so you can actually read the words. And let's start the big one. So this is the tree of life, with the one at the top, 2, 3, and then down the center 6, 9, and 10, and that's the connection to everything. So what I have on this wall is I have Crowley's deck. I also have the Hermetic deck, which is supposed to be a recreation of the original Golden Dawn deck. As well, on each sheet of paper, I have my best notes from the New Orleans Voodoo deck, which is, I think, a really wonderful deck for the African wisdom on this stuff. And I usually have some other ideas here about what else they mean and also what sign is attached to them. But again, I don't know the astrology as well. But then the numbers work backwards, and so here's 9. You have the 9 muses. I just put up my Enneagram sheet, which I found. Again, something I don't know well, but I want to learn more about. Here are the 8s, the 8 circuits of Leary, the 8... this is Ra's octaves. This is the 8 cities of Buddhism. This is the Noble Eightfold Path of Buddhism, which somebody on here just told me about. And then this, I can't see any of your comments for a bit, so I'll have to go back and see them. This is the 4 elements and the 3 states of matter, which to me is one of the most meaningful and ones I know well of, how things work. This actually helps me personally. Here's the chakras, the 7 magical works of medieval occultism. I just did this video, Kybalion, the 7 powers of the owl. The Toltec 6th sun. This is like the next generation. I just put this one up, but here's the 3, the trinity that really intrigued me from the Toltec tradition with the Mother Earth and the moon and the night. And then this is Tzaltec, the Toltec mother, the eater of the goddess of carnal desires and the eater of impurities. In Eastern alchemy, there's 5 elements. It's actually wood and metal. and then fire, earth, and water. Wood is actually also air, because I don't know if you know this. Trees are actually, everything in a tree, none of that comes from the ground. All that carbon is just pulled directly from the air. That's what the only thing they get out of the ground is water and minerals. And so trees are basically made of air, which I always thought was a fascinating concept. So wood in China, wood being air makes a lot of sense. And then metal, I respect a system of alchemy that includes metal, because it's the newest one. We've had metal for a few thousand years, and it's changed everything, and we need to acknowledge that it's in there now. It's been in the mix, and perhaps there's a sixth element coming with AI or all the technologies converging this generation. We're at another tipping point. And then we get into the fours, which 4 is earth. There's also the 4 debts of Dharma, and I'll read these because these I think are really important. In the Dharma, we are born on this earth with 4 debts, and we have a debt to the gods, and we please them by our sacrifices to them. We have debts to the rishis and the sages, and we appease them through study and austerities. We have debts to our ancestors, and we do that through children, or if you're queer, through helping other people, helping the next generation. That's why queerness is Catholic in the animal kingdom. Like, there's always like 10% homosexual in almost every type of animal you look at, because they help the genes within their community. And then you have the debt to people through kindness. This is in the Mahabharata, which I'm working through, and it's a really amazing book. This is Jung's 4 elements: thinking, sensing, intuiting, and feeling. And then to 3, which is water, and you have things like the maiden mother and the crone and the father, son, and the holy mother. Then 2 is air, with all the great dualities, which I don't even write here because they're kind of so easy. This is 1, fire and plasma. And then this is different traditions about how all the ones break down, and then starting at 0. And what if our universe's life is just the source code of it all, flipping from a 0 to a 1? And sometimes you have a stoned idea 15 years ago, and you write it on an old piece of paper, and it follows you for the rest of your life, and you keep thinking, yeah, that could be it. Anyway, and the last thing, which is actually really amazing, is if you don't know F.W.H. Myers, he was the first great scientist to work on things like telepathy, and this is the chart from his book, The Subliminal Self. It's in chapter 9, and it's just the different types and how they work in the different directions at things like telepathy and self-suggestion and psychic phenomena, retrocognition, memory of spirits, just all of those, how all of those things work together. I've been studying the supernormal or the paranormal now for maybe 2 years. A buddy here in Bordeaux said that I should read Jeffrey Kripal, who I didn't know. And so I started reading his books, and I was blown away. He's this religions professor at Rice University in Texas, and he had like a mystical experience without drugs in India. And he just started being someone who writes about this stuff. I don't know why I'm getting invited to stuff here. But hey, Claire, good to see you. Oh, my cousin. And so so Jeffrey Kripal. And Jeffrey Kripal was the one who really got me to be like, I didn't really think about paranormal stuff much. I was a scientist, and certainly didn't disbelieve it, but also didn't believe it, hadn't done my research. And so I started looking into it. I'm like, oh my God, there's evidence for all of this, at least enough for a scientist, studying phenomena that can't be repeated in a laboratory, and all you have is people's experience with it, especially with the UFO, and the history of folklore, spirits kind of stuff. And so I'm like, this is going to be my next book, because right now I'm in the middle of writing my 135 chapters based on Moby Dick about cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. So I have 3 graphic novels finished on that, and I'm about to get them up for sale again on Amazon. They're out of print at the moment, but I'm just reformatting them. His name is Jeffrey Kripal. And somebody just asked. And so Kripal got me into this stuff, and I'm like, these are my next books. And if you're going to write, just like I learned from my cannabis books, if you're going to write a book about something, you need to read 50 to 100 to 150 books about it, and you need to interview at least 100 people. And then you're at the point where maybe you can start putting it all together. So I decided while I'm writing my cannabis books, I am going to start researching my supernormal stuff. And so I've been doing that really hard for the past 2 years. Just reading tons about the science of this, the stories of it, really wild out there takes. And it's been fascinating. It's just, as a scientist, it's just, oh man, there's so much here. And it really speaks to how much more strange the universe is, how much more strange and interesting. Because, the thing it always makes me think of is I read a ton of fantasy books when I was a kid and sci-fi, but what I wanted was, a beautiful woman, princess, to jump through a portal with a sword and be like, point at me and be like, we need you. We need your very specialized skills in the sci-fi and science to come save the universe. Like, come have this adventure. And I always wanted that. And then I got older and I got into like materialistic science, and I'm like, oh, it's just what it is. Like, it's amazing. The entire world is fascinating. I love genetics and evolution, and all of that I could study forever. And then by my late 30s, as I have kids, I start just reading about the science of the really crazy out there stuff, and it's true. It's there. It's there for anyone who wants to see it, and for some reason a bunch of people don't want to look at it, which is fine. Just don't shit on it if you've never read a book about it. And all of a sudden, the magic's back. Precognitive dreams, past lives, future lives, spirits that talk to you, spirits that deceive you. That's the thing about all this stuff. I had a good bit of a spiritual crisis just 2 months ago, because reading enough about the alien stuff where I'm like, maybe all of the religions have spirits at their foundings. There are otherworldly beings there all the time. And it's well, maybe all of this good stuff about how to treat us is just what you tell your farm animals. The whole hippie movement of the 60s was just a way to get our meat to be more veganish. And it was, that there could be a lot more lies going on, because once you look at the, who killed JFK and all this stuff, it's once I realized that the CIA shot JFK, I'm like, how much more worse could the world be? They shot his mistress. They shot probably dozens of people around the case. I don't know exactly how many, but it's pretty clear from the basic journalism of it. And it's well, if that's what humans are doing to each other, and there are these spirits that are interacting with us in all kinds of ways and penetrating our brains in all kinds of ways, a lot of them are going to be dishonest. Probably a lot of them are nice, and a lot of them aren't. And who do you trust? And I just had a real crisis of who I could trust in this world. And so I had a buddy here, though, and he's like, you trust yourself and you trust the spirits that are good. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I do with the books that I read and the people around me. As they say in 12-step, take what you like and leave the rest. And so someone in a book says something that sounds like bullshit, I don't know, ignore it. But keep their good stuff. So anyway, enough on that. How do I keep myself protected? I do a lot of prayer time. I have a lot of spirits here that I talk to. I try to talk to a lot. And I have my spiritual community that I reach out to when I'm in need. But yeah, I think it's important to be connected to that stuff. Here's a question I saw. Just curious, what are your credentials? What have you studied? I have a bachelor's in biochemistry, and that's all I got. I could have went back for a master's in evolution, and I didn't, because it just didn't seem like a good use of my time. I'm basically just an autodidact. I always just read a lot of books, and even with this stuff, I'm not like a practitioner. I'm not like a real connected teacher kind of thing. But I've just read a ton of books, and I do believe that it doesn't matter what you study, as long as you study a whole bunch of things or one thing very deeply, and you start to see the patterns of it repeat everywhere. And to me, and this is a good point I haven't put together on camera, I guess, for everybody, is I see all of these as different patterns of the universe, and they just repeat all the time. So when all of these religions come up with 7 basic deities or forces of nature, it's because there's about that many basic flows of fire and wind and ocean and things like that. And I know Annie Dillard said that if you can't see the forest, study the trees. Study the trees, study the trees. until you see all of them. And for me, that's what happened. I read a whole bunch of science, a whole bunch of history, a whole bunch of literature. I hitchhiked around a lot and talked to a lot of different people in the world. And after a while, there's just patterns that you start to see emerge. And I don't think it matters what you study as long as you study it a bunch and you just come at it with an open heart, just listen, and don't think you know that much. I think it's really good at 40 to be like, whew, I don't really have this figured out at all. What I like about the Tibetans is if you're a Tibetan, your doctorate degree takes 20 years. And to me, that makes a ton of sense. Also, in the Jewish tradition, you aren't allowed to start studying the Kabbalah until you're 40. And have a teacher who vouches for you, probably settle down with a family and like a work that you're settled in your life. You really need to be ready for this. And it's something you're going to hear me say a lot is I'm not really starting like a practice with this stuff until I'm 44. Like that's when I hope to start being a magus. Magus? I don't even know how you say it. That's a word that came to me years ago. My sun side's Aquarius. Because I'm just not ready. I haven't studied enough of this stuff yet. And I think it's really smart. I think it's really important to take it slow. And I think with drugs, with mysticism, with any kind of like austerity practice, you don't want to start it at 15 or 18 or even 25. You shouldn't start anything before you're 25. I mean, if the world was sane, you would all be traveling and like hooking up in hostels until you're 25. But it's I know Crowley can be a son of a bitch. But he's one where you have to take what he says that's good and leave the rest. And he says you really shouldn't get into this stuff until you've studied yourself up to like a PhD equivalent in, the 6 or 8 major subjects of philosophy and history and science and also to push your own body to the limits, to know how many mountains you can climb, how long you can hold your breath, like really get yourself to the next level of self-knowledge and do therapy. He didn't do therapy. That's you have to do therapy. You have to do some kind of practice like that to work on yourself so you're not a son of a bitch. Because one thing that Jeffrey Kripal says that I think is really important is I can't remember the exact word he used, but the spirituality downloads are not connected to morality. That's why there are so many monstrous teachers out there. Among yoga, among the drug world, like any of these worlds where there's power, money, anywhere there's power, there's sex and abuse and things right next to it. And it's people who haven't done their own work. These gurus are absolutely getting, genius stuff from above and teaching thousands and probably making them better, tens of thousands. But in their people around them, they're drunks who are destroying the people around them. And you can't do it that way. You have to do your own work. And this stuff is really powerful and it's really dangerous, and you really need to be in a good safe spot. And you don't want to disappear your ego. As I've heard some shamans say, you need a really good ego. You need a good, strong ego that cares about yourself. Doesn't think it's the only ego, but knows it is your ego. And yeah, I think it's a really important part of it. And I had a great shaman in New York, and he said, never trust a shaman who doesn't laugh. If they're not laughing, get out of there. They need to, you need to think of yourself in the grand scheme of things and how funny all of it is. My father is a great example of what really enlightened Christianity can be, and he's always talking about how funny God is and how there are these winks from God. And I don't think I didn't see that much in my early life. But you know what did do it? Which I just was reflecting today. It was really the beginning of the study of the I Ching for me, was the first time that I felt like the universe was, like there was someone right there, like laughing and winking with me. I would do readings with the I Ching and ask a question, and it would, the answer would be so perfect and often cheeky, like poking at me, and it'd be like, is there like a little old man behind my back watching this to make this happen? And it was just so clearly like, this is for you. And then I saw it even, and then I worked with the tarot later in my life, actually as I was writing my first books. And I was working with, my artist was my friend Sumac from Peru, and she was a mystic. She does beautiful work, and she knew the tarot really well, and we used it a lot during this, and drew the cards a lot. And so often we would get cards that were just a barrel of laughs. It's like the cards are just there looking at you, winking and nodding and laughing along with you, but also sometimes poking you. So yeah, the cosmic joke, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important not to take yourself too seriously, and before you really try to apply this stuff, to get yourself in a really good grounded place, because these lead to real powers. As one monk said to my buddy Didi, if you can fly, you probably shouldn't tell too many people. And I think about that a lot, because people do get to that kind of level. I can't remember the name of the book, I haven't read it, but there's a great book about this flying monk about 250 years ago. I mean, he did it in front of dozens of representatives of the church, and he hated it. He would just get really into his prayer time and all of a sudden be floating up there, and everybody saw him doing it. And he was embarrassed by the whole thing. He wasn't a very smart guy, apparently. He was just very much into it, and he would just float, and the church saw it, and they didn't, and they're like, is he doing something wrong? And they finally just, no, he's just a miracle, and we're gonna let it go. And it's one of those great books where skeptics like to poke holes in it, and you look at them poking the holes like, your holes are lousy. Like, for me, there's a lot of, the thing about this is you have to have a discerning mind. There's a lot of bullshit, crazy ideas out there, but probably 10% of them are true, maybe 20, maybe more. Some of them are true. You can't discount all of them. And for me, the best practice is read the book, or at least read the review of the book, and then read the couple of best skeptical essays out there. Because for anything out there, you have some skeptics who are like, no, this is here's the hole in this one. And sometimes their holes are great. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely probably how this trick got played. And other times it's like, that's not a good explanation for explaining away dozens of people seeing something happen. Leave room for miracles. Why not? Man, I just feel very lucky with this big video blowing up. I only got added by 2 bros, and both of them were pretty nice. One of them was pretty nice about it. Overall, somehow I didn't get on the wrong side of TikTok. I got onto this really sweet side of TikTok. All right, maybe I'll just take 1 or 2 more questions that I see come up, because I have to go and do the dishes and it's late. And I gotta get my newsletter out tomorrow. But I guess I should mention the stuff that I have out there in case anybody wants to see it. The main thing I do is I do a Cannabinoids and the People newsletter every week that I'm really proud of, and it's everything that comes out of about the cannabinoid science. And so I also do. And that's my work. I do content and education for cannabis and psychedelic companies. I have my 3 graphic novels that are free on my website, lexpelger.com, about the endocannabinoid system and cannabis. There's one queer one that I'm very proud of. That's a great piece of work. So if you're queer, this is a great queer history about how the queers led to the birth of the idea of medical marijuana. Those are on lexpelger.com, as well as my 3 podcasts. I have 2 older ones for the if you're into drugs, the best thing I can ever give you is the storytelling sessions I did for the Psychedelic Salon. Because I didn't do anything. I just put up an open microphone and said, tell me your good and bad drug stories, and people just shared from their heart. And as someone who's spent most of my adult life studying drugs, I learned more from those people's stories than I did from all of the books that I read and all the scientific literature. They're really beautiful, and there's a beautiful flow to all the events again. I would love to do them again. And then my newest show is The Lex Files, and it was more drugs in the beginning, but now it's getting more into this more super normal, and I'm hoping to be starting it again soon. I gotta find a sponsor and all that, but yeah, so I think those are the offerings to mention right now. And yeah, and I think I'm gonna start a Discord. I think that's going to be the solution here. If that sounds good to all of you, that feels like the right thing. And once I get my book republished, the queer book at least, soon, I'm going to start a Patreon too, and give that as one of the awards. I think that's the way that this is going to go. So great. Okay, good. You thinking Discord? Awesome. Yeah, it's the one that makes sense to me. I'm a typer, you know? Am I familiar with the Vedas or the Tantras? Not the Vedas, but the Mahabharata I am reading right now. And it's, yeah, I have some things from it I went over earlier. And I have a video on the Mahabharata in my spiritual playlist, I believe. It's amazing. So if you don't know, the Mahabharata is like this long. It's like, I have like 10 books. There's one good English translation that's new. It's pretty easy to look it up. It's from Penguin, I think. The Bhagavad Gita is a small part within the Mahabharata. It's just a fascinating read. Like there's all these big crazy stories with big numbers of like demons dying and fights and things like that. But in between is just conversations between people about what constitutes good and right action. And it is as true ideas as I've seen from any holy book anywhere in the world. It's such beautiful stuff. And you can see why Crowley said that, you know, human wisdom, like all the secrets are in India. Also, all the tricks are in India too. I spent about a year there when I was with Tessa, my sister, who's moderating here. We spent about a year in India together, and you know it's a difficult place to see, and also an amazing place to see. And yeah, all the secrets are there. So certainly one of the best holy books I've ever read, and I've only finished the first book out of the 7 or 8 I have. But it's fantastic. All right. Well, I think that's probably. Oh, you know what? I'll leave you with I will leave you with the card that I got tonight. I wanted to pull a card for our session, and if you've been following me, you know that I'm really into the alchemical tarot that my wife got me for my birthday, and this was the card. This is the 2 of discs, and this is the polarity of the sun and the moon, and in most decks it is called, what is it called again? It's called Change, or the Lord of Harmonious Change, with the alchemical process of the lion and the eagle. So yeah, we'll end with that card, and the last thing I'll say is thanks so much for joining. Feel free to leave comments on my TikTok videos. I now have a platform where I sort all of them and I reply there, and I can reply to questions. So I have like 20 or 30 videos in my head I'm ready to do from this one blowing up. So I have time to do one a day, so I'm just gonna work through it. But yeah, everything you write, I read. And if we get a Discord, where'd you get the deck? It's Robert M. Place's alchemical deck. My wife got it for my birthday. I forgot I even asked her for it, which is one of the best kind of presents. But yeah, leave comments, and you know, most of all, thanks for all the wisdom that you all have been sharing with me, and all the good energy that you're sending my way. You know, I'm a bit alone here in France, not speaking the language, and this just outpouring of really kindness, and only getting added at by one dude. And then you all sharing all of this great stuff, the 7 powers of the owl, you know, the Noble Eightfold Path, I didn't even think to put up there, that Athena is associated with the number 7. You know, I just got so much stuff here that it's going to be added to the wall because of all the wisdom that you're bringing. And it's really been a beautiful ride. So thanks so much, and I look forward to keep it going, and I think we'll do another one of these soon. So, all right, see you everybody, and until next time. Now you can watch my face while I figure out how to stop this. Okay, that's it. Have a great day, everyone.